Welcome to today's webinar. Today we will be giving a review of the Conductrics platform, including many of the new release features. Both those familiar and those new to Conductrics will see a great overview of its capabilities. Today's presenter, Nate Weiss, is the CTO and leads the tech team. Also joining us is Matt Gershoff, Conductrics co-founder and CEO. Let me now hand it over to Nate.
Hey everybody, how are you? Thanks a lot for joining. I know everybody's busy. It's a bit of a rainy day here in upstate New York, where our temporary development HQ. I hope everybody's doing well in a strange time. So let's jump right in. We're Conductrics. We are what we call ourselves is a decision engine to assign customers to experiences. So you can use it for things like A/B testing. You can also use it for sort of predictive optimization, targeting of content, and so on. There's a lot of different things you can use it for. But you know, if you're familiar with us, you already know. And if you're familiar with other sort of tools in this space, other testing tools, you know, you probably have an idea of what to expect. We do certain things differently, but I think, you know, if you're familiar with, if you come from a testing background, everything that I'm going to be showing you will make sense. At the heart of our system is this metaphor of a Conductrics agent. And the Conductrics agent is just the thing that represents a test that you want to run or a predictive optimization campaign that you want to run. The whole concept basically is that the agent is in charge of, again, assigning customers, your visitors, to experiences. By experiences, we just mean usually different content variations or variations of some kind, whether to show or hide something or what your messaging is or whatever it is that you're playing around with in market, in your apps, on your web pages, and so on. And one thing that's just kind of nice about Conductrics, I think, is that under one umbrella, you get A/B testing, you get multivariate testing. You can set up fixed targeting rules. We'll take a look at that. Where if you just want to show one variation to some people and another variation to other people, you can. You can set up predictive targeting, which just means that using a machine learning model will sort of auto-discover which variations work best for which subsets of your visitors and try to show the best one to the best people to the correct people in real time. And we can also do simple recommendations. You can apply those things in a bunch of different, you know, to different parts of your tech stack. You know, we have this thing called Express, which I'll be running through in a moment. So that's if you want to just set up simple tests on a web page or something. We also have a bunch of other options for implementation. So we do have a point and click type of thing, and I'm going to go through that first just as an introduction and to show you some of the new stuff that we have. But there's a bunch of other stuff for coders, React support, JavaScript, React Native, we have SDKs for iOS and Android and so on. And, you know, with any of these, you just like in one box conceptually by using one service, you can instrument all this type of stuff in all of these different places. That's the basic idea. So that's the end of this. I'm going to stop with the slides and jump right over to what we want to show you, or part of what we want to show you, which is the revised. We've given our admin a bit of a refresh and added a bunch of new features in here just to help you manage your Conductrics powered tests and just your overall testing program. So we're seeing more and more companies we're seeing more and more companies running lots and lots of, we're seeing more and more companies running lots and lots of tests with Conductrics. I've gotten a note here that maybe you can't see my screen all that well, so I'm just going to scale it a little bit, and hopefully that works better for everybody. So here we are in the refresh Conductrics admin. So for those of you who already know us, this will be familiar, but just revamped with a bunch of stuff that you guys have been asking for over the past year or so. And for folks that are new to Conductrics, this will just serve as a little bit of an introduction. So like I was saying, one of the things that we're hearing more and more is that, you know, we have customers, we're seeing customers, which is awesome. We're seeing customers that are running hundreds or thousands of tests every year. You know, that's exciting, but one of the things that we heard is that it was sort of difficult to keep track of all the different tests that you might be running. So you've got a whole bunch of different people in the organization. Some of them are QA, some of them are creating tests, some of them are doing stuff on mobile, other people are doing stuff on the web. How do we keep track of all that stuff? So this is your basic list of agents, your basic list of tests. And we've added just a few things that hopefully will make it a lot easier to keep track of everything. For one thing, we've added several views. So you've got a sort of a card view here where you've got, you know, a fair amount of details about each test. You can see about how much traffic each test has gotten so far. You've gotten some notes about it. You can see when it was started or stopped or created and so on, and by whom. And you can easily, for instance, if you wanted to, you can easily star you can star one of your tests. So if you've created a test, you might want to star that so that it just appears up at the top of the list for you. So the next time I came in here, I would see all of my. This is just a way to pin the tests that I'm interested in up at the top. You can also split all of your. You can split your. You know, you're going to probably have different teams within the organization that are running different tests. So you can either look at all of everything for all teams together. You could look at just the tests that are actually running. You could include the ones, or just the ones that have already stopped, or you could look at all of them. You could focus just on the ones for the homepage team, just the ones for the commerce team, so on and so forth. So this makes it really, we've had teams for a while now, but this makes it really easy to focus on the tests that you care about. You get a smaller view here. So if you've got tons of tests, this is an easier way to look at stuff. You can still favorite things and whatever, you still get a fair amount of information. You can do bulk stuff. So if you want to, you can select multiple tests and start them all at once or stop them all at once or do other things like that. And new in this release, we also have a calendar view. So if you're finding that it's hard to keep track of what tests ran when, or what tests are projected to be running into the future, you can use this calendar view to kind of get a sense of all that stuff. We've also added a few other options for sorting and for filtering your agents. So that's a quick tour of, just before we kind of get into the meat of things, it's just a quick tour of a few things that we've added this stuff is all especially suited for teams for companies that are running lots and lots of tests, like hundreds or thousands of tests or whatever, or at least aspire to do so. Much of what's been added, though, in Conductrics for this new version is a new set of options and just sort of a streamlined workflow for creating new tests and creating other new optimizations and so on. One of the things that we heard from everybody was that, Conductrics offers lots of options, but it had gotten a little bit complicated over the years in terms of keeping track of the different options. And so we've taken a step back and really tried to recalibrate the overall user experience, just so it's easier to get around with fewer clicks, but where you really can see everything that Conductrics can do for you, can easily turn on and off all the various knobs and features and stuff that we provide. So let's kind of take a look at this. So let's say that we wanted to, I'm going to kind of walk through a little bit of a fictitious scenario here where I've got just a pretend landing page. Just pretend this is the homepage for your company or something. And we're interested in running some kind of A/B test on here. So let's start really simply. So the first thing I do is I hit create. I'm brought here, and I can see right away that Conductrics is going to be able to help me with a bunch of different types of problems, right? So if I want to do simple A/B testing, I can do that, no problem. I can also use almost all of the same stuff to do predictive targeting. Predictive targeting just means that's why we have a little robot here. Predictive targeting just means that we're going to learn over time which variations work best for which people and try to serve those, serve up the appropriate variations in real time. You can also set up rule-based targeting, where you might say that people from one continent or one country or whatever see one variation and other people see a different variation or something like that. So very briefly, we're going to walk through most of this stuff. So let's just start with the simplest case, which you're all probably most familiar with and care most about, maybe off the top of your heads, simple A/B tests. So let's see what this looks like. So we'll select A/B tests. The first thing we prompt you for are just conceptually, what are your variations? We're going to assume, by default, we're sort of assuming that you've got a typical scenario where your A variation is just leaving the page alone, and you've got a B variation, which is introducing some kind of new intervention or a challenger of some kind, right? So different text or different something or other. So we will. What we can do here is, there's a number of different things that we can do here. We can obviously add more variations if we need to, remove them. If you need to add custom weightings, so rather than 50-50, we can certainly do that here. So if you wanted to make it, 80-20 or something, if you wanted to be conservative, or I know some people in that type of situation would rather maybe do something like 80-10-10 or whatever. There's a bunch of, you can do whatever you need to in here. And note that we're also giving you a duration calendar inline, so you can right away see at least get a guess as to how long you might want to run this test for. So you can punch in the amount of traffic that you are expecting to get. And so based on the number of variations, we will give you an approximation of how long we think that the test is going to need to run. So you'll get different numbers as you add and remove variations and so on. So then after you've defined what your variations are, so let's just go back to basically having an A and a B. Now you let us know how you want to implement. How do you want to implement it, right? So basically, how do you want to define how the variations actually appear or affect the user experience? And basically, we provide two sort of umbrellas. One is Conductrics Express. So that's the point and click type of thing where you set everything up in the Conductrics admin. So we support that type of deal. And we try to give these equal weight. We also have developer APIs for folks that want to integrate testing more cohesively into their backend, let's say, or into their mobile devices, mobile apps, or whatever. And what we're finding more and more is that lots of companies want to do both, right? So we're starting to see people becoming much more sophisticated in terms of their testing methodologies and their overall, like the ambition of their testing program. And so we're getting a lot of interest in APIs so that folks can wire testing directly like into the code on their side. However, a lot of times the companies don't want to, they still want to have the flexibility to run some tests sort of in a more ad hoc fashion, right? So, more and more we're seeing that companies like the idea of developers being involved, developers on your side being involved with testing, but maybe not for all tests. And so you can use both together. Let's start with Conductrics Express. So this, I'm going to use this just as a way to kind of illustrate a bunch of different things. So let's choose Conductrics Express, just meaning again that we're going to set up the test here in the Conductrics admin rather than in code on your side. And you get three choices under this umbrella. You get you can either set up the choices, the variations visually. You can just provide your own custom JavaScript, or you can set up a page redirect. So let's choose the first one first. So in such a case, if you're going the WYSYWIG route, the main thing that you have to provide is a URL for a landing page. So we took a look at that landing page earlier, and just click WYSYWIG, and that will bring up the page in your browser with this little tab added. And you just hit the plus sign and hover over the thing that you want to make a change to. So let's say that we want to change this headline text. Again, we give you a little toolbar, and there's a bunch of different things you can do in here. But if you want to just do something simple, you can do this, something like this, or create new stuff now, or whatever. And there's a bunch of other things that you can do in here, as you would kind of expect, right? So I could go in here, I could insert new HTML content if that was appropriate. I could just show or hide different things, right? So if I wanted to like show or hide this area down here, that's very easy to do. I can move things around. I can change attributes. If I needed to change like where a link leads to, that's a common case where I would change the href to something or other, or whatever. There's a bunch of stuff I can do in here. I can upload new images and that kind of thing. So like, just a quick illustration. I could hide this area, right? So now this variation, we're saying that there's two things going on. The text has changed, and that's this area has been hidden. If I need to, I can quickly switch back and forth so I can see a before and after and satisfy myself that I did the right thing. Then when I'm done setting up my variations, I can click done. I'm returned back to the Conductrics admin. I can proceed to the next step. And that next step is really just finishing up and giving the test a name and so on. This is another thing that we've added recently, again, for management of, for folks that are doing more and more testing. One of the things we hear is that often a lot of companies like to have a strict naming convention for their tests. That's one thing that we've added in this version is the ability to define a naming convention and use a naming convention. So you are free, of course, if you need to or want to, you can just name the agent whatever you want, right? So this would be new headline test or whatever it is. But again, frequently we're hearing that it makes sense to enforce some kind of naming convention. So for instance, you might have a naming convention that says that you have to provide the region, right? So the region is US, and then you're gonna provide a name, and then maybe you're gonna reference a JIRA ticket number. And so you would end up with this calculated name to enforce your naming convention. And you can set up new naming conventions in here. So there's a whole bit about how the name will be formatted and all that kind of stuff. Let's go ahead and you can of course assign this to a team. I guess this would be assigned probably to the homepage team. So let's go ahead and click create. So now we land at the agent's main page in our admin. There's a bunch of stuff in here. We're not going to have time to go over absolutely everything, but we've put a lot of work into making it really easy to read and understand everything that this agent is going to do once you start it. In this sidebar over here, this is sort of a timeline of what's going to happen with essentially every page view once this test launches, right? So it's going to activate on this page, and this is where I could provide some kind of fancy conditions if I needed to. Query string parameters are only for people that have a certain cookie or whatever it might be. I can check visitor eligibility, right? And so you might have a requirement that this test is only appropriate for people who are registered or people who are not registered. Let's take a look at some of the stuff that you could do in here. So if you want to, you can provide eligibility, some words in here explaining that this is how you define who's eligible for the test. You can go in here and add a condition. There's lots of, we provide some stuff out of the box. So you could say that, only on certain days of the week or only on the weekend or whatever, only in certain countries or what have you, should the, to provide control over who's included or excluded from the test. And you can also define custom traits that are specific to your company. So I put in a couple of these already, some kind of membership tier and their registered status. Well, we can easily define new custom traits just while I'm in here. So for instance, I might come up with a new trait type, right? So this is just some piece of information that Conductrics couldn't possibly know about on its own, or you're going to essentially teach us some kind of visitor attribute that Conductrics should care about. And so it might be something like, like has watched video, or something like that. So this would be a typical use case. And you can basically say, you can give these things friendly names. Hasn't watched, right? And I guess it would have made more sense for has watched or whatever. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in here about how we actually going to read, how we actually going to be informed at runtime when the page is actually being viewed, how we actually going to find out, how do we know whether or not the person has watched video in the past. There's a whole bunch of stuff, too much to go into now, but we can either look at a data layer, we can look at a cookie or some kind of magic URL parameter, and you can also set up custom conditions. So you could just tell Conductrics to wait until they get to some video page, and once they've gotten there, then just mark them automatically with the has watched video attribute or whatever. So if we wanted to say that this particular agent, this particular test should only be exposed to people that have watched a video in the past, we could just go ahead and add that condition here. Watched. And we just click done. And so now we've set up an include, exclude type of eligibility criteria. And then you can also, if you needed to add another variation at this point, you can easily do that. And there's a bunch of other stuff that you could do. If you needed to go back into the WYSYWIG mode to tweak the changes that we made or review them, you can easily do that here. And one other important thing that you want to do is to add some kind of goal event, some kind of measurement to evaluate the efficacy of your variations against. So you can do that by just clicking here and then creating a new goal. The goal is just our word for like a conversion event of some kind, right? So you might have something like a purchase, and you can easily say whether or not you want, like for instance, if they get to the thank you page, if they load the thank you or the purchase complete page or whatever, we can consider that a purchase event. But of course, there's other stuff that you could do in here. You could wait for them to click on certain buttons, and there's a bunch of additional options in here. Some of these are new, for instance, this event capturing thing. Those, you know, some folks I think will be excited about this new option. You could, if you've already instrumented all of your conversion events in GA or in your data layer, you can just have us listen for those so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel in Conductrics or whatever. So there's a bunch of different stuff that you can do here. Let's just create a very simple, we'll just create a simple conversion event. As you can see, we could also accept numeric values. That's common in e-commerce, but for now, we'll just do a simple one. So we're listening for the purchase event. We could set up any number of conversion events that we want to. And of course, next time I go to set up a test, this one will already be in here and I don't have to set it up again. So I can select that. And so we can, reading from the top down, we can see, okay, well, we're going to activate on these pages. We're going to check for whether the visitor is eligible. We're going to assign them a variation just randomly. We're going to then, for whichever variation, like if they get selected for the B variation, we're going to apply those changes. We're going to listen for goal events to be triggered, and then we're going to record visitor data. And if you want to, you can let us know that it's okay to also record, say, their membership tier status along with the fact that they converted or whatever. So that would enable you to see in your reporting, you'd be able to split out the success of A versus B by membership tier or whatever. And then you would just go ahead and save your changes. A few other things that you can do in here. You can add attachments. That was added not that long ago. So if you just have JIRA tickets or requirements documents or something like that, you want to add them in here, it's fine. If you want to share this with other teams, you can. So if you had a separate team in Conductrics that was your QA people, you might, when you've set the thing up, you might want to pass this to your QA team. You could do that here. And you can decide where you want to deploy this thing. So you might want to, like I have this set up to deploy automatically to both QA and production, but in reality, you would probably set up a situation where it would deploy automatically to QA, but you would have to come in here and specifically check off that you wanted it to get to production once you had gone through some kind of QA phase. So we provide a bunch of stuff about that, too much to get into here, but there is a bunch of stuff about controlling an agent attest through the QA phase and out into production. Also new in this version is analytics connectors. So these are back-end analytics connectors, meaning that, if you want to, you can have Conductrics push to, like, say, Adobe or GA360 or whatever. You can have us push events over in real time. And because that's on the back end, it means that whether you're using our REST API or you're using our client-side stuff like we're doing here, it's going to end up in your analytics, your fourth-party analytics, no matter which flavor of Conductrix you're using. So if I wanted to, I could check off that I want to send this off to Adobe or whatever, and I can set up multiple of these things if I need to. You might have a separate Adobe report suite for certain areas of your site or whatever. So you can pick and choose here what analytics packages you want to send the variation information to. So you can see downstream, you can be able to look in your downstream analytics and see, compare the performance of A versus B or whatever natively in your analytics package. And we also have a custom one of these if you want to roll your own. Via PubSub. So if you have internal analytics that you want to integrate with, we can handle that as well, no problem. So that's a quick tour of everything that you can do with an Express agent. I want to now go back to, well, let's see what it would look like if we wanted to just quickly start this. So right now it's launched, it hasn't started yet. We've created the agent, but it hasn't started yet. When I'm ready to go ahead and create it, I can just switch it to the running state. I get this calculator again. The calculator, based on the numbers that I've given it, is recommending either 9 days or 2 weeks. So let's go ahead and choose 9 days. Or whatever, you can choose however many days you want to. And if for whatever reason it's not appropriate, you can just say that you don't care, you want to just run the test forever, or you want to decide on your own later. That's fine too. So you would just hit start, and now the agent would be running either in your QA or production environments. I could then return back out to the agent list and see my new agent here. And I would also see that, we now project, we're able to add the projected end date to the calendar. So you can sort of see how many different tests I've got overlapping. The stripes indicate that it's projected. Now, I skipped over a bunch of stuff earlier that I want to get back to. I think I have another 10 minutes or so. Back when we were creating an agent, I just want to make sure that that we don't gloss over too much the fact that there were some other options in here. For instance, rule-based targeting. So if I wanted to, I could set up another agent where I could add simple targeting rules that say, for instance, I want everyone that's in the silver membership tier to get the B variation or whatever. So that's a very easy thing that you can add. You can create a whole bunch of these different rules if you want to. And so this can be really handy. And then also earlier, we set up a test using WYSYWIG, but you can also just provide your own custom JavaScript. This is still under the Express umbrella. So this is where you could just provide whatever JavaScript is appropriate. So if you got light coders or web coders on your team and they just have JavaScript that they need to paste in to create their tests, I know a lot of people prefer to do things that way. You can do so. We provide some bells and whistles though. If you got something in here which is, sign up part of your, if you got the sign up part of your page and you want to change something about it, like, I'm not sure if that actually makes sense, but conceptually, if you've got some kind of sign up window that appears, you might want to be changing some part of it, you can change the text or, do whatever it is that your JavaScript is going to do. But you might have to, you might want Conductrics to wait until the sign up thing actually appears. Because it might be a single page app of some kind, right? Where after the user clicks on this button, that's when the sign up thing appears. And so it's not appropriate for Conductrics to record a variation or attempt to make those changes to the page until whatever window it is appears or something. And so this is a very quick and easy way to be able to deal with sort of lightweight single page app scenarios. Where it just doesn't make, you're basically going to wait for the visitor to enter the state of the page where the sign up area is visible. And only then are we going to count it as an actual view, right? So I think that that's something that's relatively complicated to do. Maybe sometimes in some platforms, we make it really easy. You just tell us, at what point should we consider it a view? Oh, okay, well, it's when the sign up window appears, and then we're going to change the text to whatever. And there's some stuff in here also. If this is a React page, sometimes you end up fighting with React. This will just cause us to re-execute the JavaScript as needed. And that can be a really nice, simple solution. And you can switch back and forth if you needed to provide JavaScript for the A variation. In addition to the B variation, you could do that. So some stuff in there. And we also skipped over earlier page redirects. So it's very easy to just set up different URLs if it's easier for you guys. You might have some tests where it's just easier to create a whole separate page. And if so, you can just provide the URLs and we'll take care of the rest. For developers, we haven't talked about developers too much yet, but we really do try to give them equal weight within the platform. All the stuff everything about creating the agent is virtually the same, except instead of going WYSYWIG or whatever, we just give you some API access to the underlying test agents, right? So you call our APIs, and we'll basically tell you, okay, for this visitor, you should show them treatment A versus treatment B or whatever. Then we take care of recording it in for reporting purposes, sending it to your analytics, updating our machine learning model, and all of that good stuff. One thing that was suggested is just to make it really easy to grab snippets or whatever. So, if you've got some agent, you give it a unique ID. You can regenerate the unique ID if you want to. And you can easily get snippets. Like, for instance, for our REST API, here's how you would actually get a variation selection from the test, right? So you don't have to be a coder necessarily to understand everything about this. Just conceptually ask Conductrics, here's the test ID, and it's chosen the B variation for this person. And I've got a bunch of other snippets in here as well. So if I'm working on iOS, or if I'm working on Android, both of those, we actually provide 2 separate APIs depending on what your needs are, React Native, so on and so forth. There's a little cheat sheet here as well that helps you know what all the various little API codes are and stuff for your agents. Basically, if you have developers on your team, they'll be good to go. We provide lots of APIs, and there's other stuff that you can do with the APIs. You can grab reporting data and so on. A couple of other things that I wanted to show you before we close. As I was just explaining, we're seeing that more and more teams, more and more companies like to use both Express for some of their tests, the lightweight tests, but for their deeper tests that are maybe more important to the company long-term, or just are more, require additional integration, we provide these developer APIs. But a lot of times you want to do something that's somewhere in between. You want to empower non-technical users to do stuff, to run tests quickly and easily, but without developer intervention, but also without giving them the power to just do anything to any page. And so we're really hearing that as a need. And so to answer that, we've developed a feature in Conductrics called Express Macros. Let's take a look what that's like. So a macro is conceptually kind of like a templated test or a templated optimization campaign or whatever. So let's just say, going back to our simplistic example here, let's just say that you wanted people to be able to quickly and easily run tests that changed, let's say, this hero image and this landing description and this CTA. Let's just say you wanted to do something and you wanted them to be able to quickly and easily do that without worrying, without necessarily needing a QA cycle. Just, if you wanted to empower them to make do quick and easy tests with enough guardrails on so that you can trust non-technical users or folks that aren't really familiar with testing. You can trust them to go in and just quickly and easily make a test without having to click around and possibly do the wrong thing or whatever. So in such a situation, what you can do is create a macro. So I've got one in here. Let's take a look at what this is like. So I made this earlier. I'm going to click edit for my macro just to give you an idea of what it's about. So there's some options in here, not so important right now. We give the thing a name, and the important thing is that we're going to define some fields, and I can add new fields easily here. For this macro, I've defined 4 fields: a heading, an image, the CTA text, and CTA color. But you can come up with, it could collect anything. One of the companies that uses us, we have a major news site that uses this feature of Conductrics. Just as an example, and they use it to run headline tests. So they wanted a way to just quickly and easily run headline tests without a lot of bother. This way they can run, 100 tests a day if they want to, or whatever, just by filling out a simple form. So let's take a look at so basically all you have to do, basically what you'll do is you'll get either Conductrics or one of your in-house developers to one time write some JavaScript, doesn't matter what the JavaScript is, write some JavaScript that's going to make some changes to the page based on inputs from your non-technical users, right? So the non-technical users will be prompted for a new heading, a new image, CTA text and CTA color. Your developer, either or us, or one of our partners, such as Search Discovery, will write JavaScript just one time to take those inputs from your non-technical user and sort of morph them into the appropriate JavaScript. It's all very easy. So what's nice about it is it only has to be done once. Or if you find a bug or you want to change the behavior in some way because your site has been updated, you can just go in here and change it once, and then it will apply to all tests that are running under this macro. So once I've created this thing, I can return to the agent list, right? So to your home base, and a button will appear up here at the top, which represents that macro. And so I can just click create, or I can just I just click the button for that macro. It's just sitting right here, and I can assign it to teams. So this might only appear for the homepage team, for instance. And so I would just provide, whatever webinar, or no, new album now, Lana, JPEG, let's say. The CTA text is listen now, and I'm going to show an optional field. I want the color to be yellow, and you can have drop downs and stuff. So then I would just hit create, and now I've created that test as sort of kind of similar to if I had gone through the WYSYWIG process, but I didn't have to go through the WYSYWIG process. You can see that it would be really, really easy to just launch tons of these tests all the time. And I can go over here and yeah, so I happen to get lucky there. I might have needed to refresh the page a couple of times to get the right variation, but I got it right away just by chance. I've now changed the corporate landing page into a landing page for an old Lana Del Rey album, which may or may not actually make any sense, but you get the idea. Another quick thing that I want to touch on before we go is that during this whole time, like for instance, just now, we created this, we just created this test based on that macro. I've been getting notifications in here in the Slack channel. So that's something that can be configured in your Conductrics account. This is a relatively new feature that's come out over the past few months. You can set you can go in here and create any number of streams, notification streams. So if you want different teams to be notified of different stuff, you can. Go ahead and so just what this gives you is the ability to set up a situation where you might want to get notified via Slack or via Google Hangout or via email of certain changes that happen in your Conductrics account. So it might be when new agents are created. There's other events that you can be notified of. We can send you a note via Slack or via email or whatever if it looks like there's some issues with data collection for whatever reason. Maybe something doesn't look right. You can get a daily agent update, and that basically checks in once a day and posts to the Slack channel, like how much traffic did this get, and okay, this is day 10 out of your planned 14-day run. Just to keep basically remind everybody that what tests are running and that kind of thing. So that can be really helpful. With that, I think that those are most of the things that I wanted to cover during this session. We have added a bunch of other little bells and whistles, but those were the big ones. The main thing is we're really trying to give you a streamlined workflow for for both creating tests and managing tests over time, especially as you scale up your testing program. From just 1 or 2 tests up to potentially hundreds or thousands of tests per year or whatever. With that, I'm going to, I guess, pause to hear if there are any questions that have come in that we have time for from Amy. And if there isn't time, then I'm sure we'll be answering your questions via email. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Nate. We just have a couple of questions, and I think we're going to be right on time. The first question is, should we use targeting agent to launch something like customer surveys?
Yeah, totally. So customer surveys, I think, would actually be, so yes, the answer is yes. You could certainly use targeting agents for that, right? So you could, one way you could do it would be to go in here and create a new agent. And you would basically say that I've got an A and this is like, doesn't get survey. And this one is gets survey. If you wanted to test it, if you don't even care about testing, maybe you just want to use Conductrics as a way to get surveys in front of people, you could just have one variation. But let's say you want to have an A and a B variation. So you either want to test or maybe you just want to use fixed targeting rules. So you could basically say you could come up with some kind of condition, only the silver tiered people that are coming in on the weekday and from Europe or whatever. Only those people should get the survey and other people should not get the survey or something like that. So you could certainly use targeting rules for that. Yep. And then what you would do, you'd have some options. The old school, like the tried and true way to do it would be to go in here and provide there's probably some JavaScript code from some kind of survey tool that you would just paste in here via Qualtrics or what have you. But if you wanted something that was a little more integrated, this would actually be a great, survey would be a great use case to use macros. So it could be something like Qualtrics survey, and you could add fields, which would be your survey ID, something like this, and you'd say, okay, well that field is required, and then let's also give it a name, and that field is required. And well, let's just say that that's it. That's probably enough. And then you'd write JavaScript once, which would be whatever gobbledygook you're getting from the survey tool, and you would use the survey ID as part of the code, right? So you'd have some kind of URL, whatever it was, blah 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 plus the survey ID or whatever. So this is just a way to parameterize it. And then you would create your macro, and then back out at the agent list, you would have a new button up here, which would be, new survey or whatever. And then when you clicked here, you would be prompted, instead of being prompted for the heading and image, you would be prompted for the survey name and the survey ID. And then you'd just be able to hit create. And then you could set up the targeting rules after you created it. Just back in you'd have something like this you go back into the agent's main page after you created it, and there you would be able to set up the targeting rules in here. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question. Hopefully I answered the right question, but yeah, sure. Mhm.
Okay. And then what is the timeline for these changes that you reviewed today?
So we're going to be talking with each of our existing customers. So if you're an existing customer with Conductrics, we're going to reach out to you and ask you what timeline makes sense. We know that throwing UI changes in front of you without warning isn't necessarily, you may want a heads up. So we'll contact everybody, and we'll work at a time when you're interested in switching over to the new version with the new features and the new revised admin. And we also can give you an option where you could use both admins side by side if you needed to. If for some reason you felt like you would rather have a transition period where for at least a couple of weeks you had the ability to use both admins, the old one and this new, I think, much better one. Then we'll reach out to you about that. But the stuff's ready. The code is shipping, so it's up to each company. We'll work it out with each company.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nate, for your time today and walking us through all of this. If anyone has any further questions, you're welcome to reach out to either Nate or Matt individually. Their emails are pretty easy, Nate@Conductrics.com or Matt@Conductrics.com. And you can also schedule your own live demo based on your specific needs. So with that, I thank you for your time and have a great day.